So as Michael mentioned, I'm Hannah Brakke, the Director of Product Management here at LabKey. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about how to modernize your lab with LabKey Sample Manager. So as Michael said, this year has been a really great year of growth for us at LabKey overall, and in particular with our newest product, Sample Manager. We've seen an 8-fold increase in the number of clients using Sample Manager this year so far, which is really excellent. As Michael said, we're always trying to get more feedback, and so those folks using the software have really helped kind of improve it over the year, which I'll talk about in this presentation as well. We've also seen a 15-fold increase in the number of samples that Sample Manager is managing overall. And this is really exciting to see all of our clients jumping in, getting started, being able to use a tool that's very helpful for them in the lab. And these numbers kind of reflect that. And lastly, we've got 77% of our clients using Sample Manager using the freezer management component, which was a big initiative for us last year. And so it's really exciting to see this type of adoption for something that we worked really hard on. So you might be wondering, with all this growth, if you're new to LabKey, what is LabKey Sample Manager? Well, it really is a cloud-based sample management tool built by scientists for scientists. So I see a lot of friendly faces or friendly names today on the attendee list, but if you don't know me, I used to be a client of LabKey's, working at Seattle Children's, trying to develop tools there that would help the laboratory scientists. It was such a great opportunity for me to come in at LabKey and really help build a new built-to-purpose tool to help scientists manage their samples in the lab. So we're providing that secure end-to-end sample tracking, and really adding on to that and allowing folks to add all of their other laboratory data. So this is where those samples might have come from. It might be the experimental assay data. It might be processing or request for workflows. And then the thing that we added this year is the ability to have all of your notebooking in this tool as well, which is really exciting. We've primarily been focused on 3 main things, mostly maintaining data integrity while still providing really flexible data structures. So Michael had referenced that a lot of our clients coming to Sample Manager are using manual systems like paper or Excel or other types of spreadsheets before they come to us. And so making sure that they're getting that validation and data integrity that's needed as part of a built-to-purpose solution, while also keeping that flexibility, has been really a highlight for us. Also making this tool really easy to use. So if the tool is really helpful and nobody wants to use it, it's not a great tool. So making an application that actually helps people in the lab was something that we really set out to do, and we continue to improve upon year after year. And then lastly, really focused on creating a collaborative environment where we're reflecting how labs work in sort of the physical space in this digital environment. All of this, of course, is sort of underlined by the fact that we want to ensure compliance and security needs for all of the labs at every level. And so ensuring that your data is secure and encrypted on our cloud environments, ensuring that we have support for CFR Part 11 compliance with our very extensive audit trails and timestamp capabilities, as well as supporting HIPAA compliant environments where you can restrict PHI or PAI access as needed, and being able to store that on an even more secure HIPAA compliant cloud environment. And then lastly, the ability to add software validation as needed. So we've run into many groups this year in particular that have wanted this program validated, and we're excited to be able to offer that this year as well. So the key feature areas of Sample Manager, as the name entails, the first one is sample tracking. So this ability to uniquely register your samples, collect that metadata that's interesting for your lab, as well as providing context for that sample, where it came from, creating lineage relationships between samples that are derived from one another or aliquoted or even pooled for that matter. We also have a freezer management component, which I'll be giving a bigger demo about later today. Really, all of the things that you would expect out of a freezer management tool, being able to customize your storage environment to what is actually within the lab itself, allowing for samples to be checked in and out, managing and tracking sample amounts, as well as those freeze thaw counts as they're coming in and out of the freezer. The third component is really capturing experimental assay data. So as you are tracking samples within the system, we also have this ability to track the experiments and the results around those samples that have been collected. Our task-based workflow management tool, which again is sort of a way to track those sample processing requests or work that you're really doing within the laboratory itself. And then our data connected electronic lab notebook, which really helps ensure that all of the data is being captured in a single system, and the data as from these other four components are able to kind of feed into that electronic lab notebook for that full chain of custody audit trail. And as Michael mentioned, we really are trying to support labs as they grow too. So most of our folks coming in are really only wanting to address the current pain points, which is oftentimes sort of their freezer management solutions. So providing different options for labs, kind of depending where they are in this modernization cycle, has been really important to us. And so the Sample Manager Starter offering really focuses on that sample tracking and freezer management component. As you start to grow into this digital space, having that integrated data connected ELN, allowing groups to capture their assay data as well as workflows, and then moving into a more advanced LIMS system, which can really provide more quality control, additional querying and reporting, and having some more integrations with other external tools that your lab might be using. And then lastly, of course, our LabKey server scientific data management system. This is something that almost all of us probably are really familiar with, and providing this growth path to this point where you can have enterprise level, company-wide scientific data management with a single application is really powerful. So some of the benefits of Sample Manager, and really kind of all of the tiers that I just reviewed, are data integrity, ensuring that anytime you put data into the system, you can validate that data, you can ensure that it's going to be correct coming in for easier downstream analysis later. We all know for those analysts that are on today, most of the work is data cleaning, so we're trying to reduce that for you as much as possible. Making sure that we're focused on that laboratory efficiency that Michael talked about. Again, as easy as we can make your life in the lab, the more science that you can do more efficiently, faster, and get kind of the results that benefit our communities as a whole. And then also really focusing on that collaboration piece. Again, kind of really ensuring that we're trying to mimic the actual physical lab environment in this digital environment, helps bring people into the tool, helps with use of the tool, and really gives that value back to the folks that are working with these applications. So we have three main areas of focus for this year for Sample Manager. One of those, of course, is ease of use. So ensuring really that we're streamlining those laboratory tasks within Sample Manager. A couple of things that we did around this year that I want to highlight is the ability to customize and save those grid views for reporting. So this was something that we were able to kind of deliver, and now end users have the ability to create basically their own grid views that they can come back to again and again as they need to. Providing this ability to perform actions on samples kind of regardless of where you are in the system allows for that flexibility as you're using the tool to really do the work that you set out to do that day. And lastly, that ability to find and query samples based on sort of complex questions. So our sample finder tool allows folks to look for all of the samples across the application based on source and parent properties. We also really wanted to focus on this growing with the laboratory needs and ensuring that we're kind of one step ahead of the game, if you will, on that. So really establishing those HIPAA compliant cloud offerings as well as validation was something we set out to do this year and has been really exciting. We've also created new roles for folks to use, such as the workflow editor and the storage editor roles, to really provide more fine-grained access control over the data within the system and what can be done. We've also launched our projects notion, which allows labs to really easily partition their data into projects and have that data be more secure. And of course, we also launched our electronic laboratory notebook this year that is this fully integrated ELN that's truly data connected with the data that's in the system. And I'm actually going to be talking about this a little bit more in my next slide. So we'll go to that. So this ELN, before you've heard this term data connected, what does that really mean? It means that as you're editing your notebook document, you're able to create a reference. It's similar to like an @ mention if you're in the social media world and all, to data within the system. And that really creates those live links that ensure that folks aren't making typos, that you can have this data be interconnected and really have that complete chain of custody, as well as that the context and history that is around those samples within the notebook. Of course, we offer a rich text editor that has really streamlined documentation for folks. It is a very simple yet very powerful tool, which it is pretty exciting to offer. You also have the ability to create notebook templates, which allow consistency between lab members as they're creating notebooks and kind of ease of use of getting started. You don't have to start this from scratch every time. Makes a lot simpler to use overall. And then lastly, trying to really reflect that lab environment with the co-authoring. So you can see kind of in this screenshot here that Jason and I are both authors for this notebook, as well as the review process. You can amend notebooks easily as well. Again, really just to kind of reflect what's actually happening in the lab in this digital space as well. We also launched Sample Finder, this ability to generate these complex queries and reports based on sort of the lineage information of the sample, if you will. So in this case here, I'm looking for all male subjects that are part of either study 1 or study 100. And these can get actually very advanced kind of as you go through and provides a report of all of the samples that match those criteria within the system. We are looking to continue and further to refine this. So more things coming out this year will be the ability to filter samples by related assay data and kind of continuing to grow on that. You can also further refine these grids as you need to, and add these samples to pick lists, print labels, move them into workflows, or just export them for further analysis. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, this ability to save these searches and come back to them on a regular basis as you're curating sort of regular reports for your lab has been introduced as well. And lastly, this idea of projects. So being able to organize your lab into projects and partition that data as needed has been a really exciting development. This essentially creates these workspaces for you to organize your data, as well as assigning access controls to meet whatever security needs your lab might have. In addition to this, they're not completely partitioned sort of containers, if you will, but we're also creating shared freezer environments that really kind of reflect what most of our labs are doing. So even if I don't have access to a given project in my lab, I am likely sharing that freezer. And so making sure that we're capturing kind of that reality of what folks are doing has been important to us as well. We've also created these roll-up views that ensure that the work across projects is very quick and simple. So if I have access to everything, I can get a very holistic view of everything that's happening in my lab. And I'll just take a quick pause. I see some folks asking some questions here in the Q&A. As I'm going through, please feel free to continue to add those, and I'll get to them at the end. So for 2023, I think we've got some really exciting enhancements coming up. We really want to continue to strengthen Sample Manager, and by doing that, really focusing on what users need to streamline their manual processes that are happening and increase that efficiency in the lab. And some of the things that kind of came to mind that I want to share are this ability to create calculated columns within Sample Manager, as well as sort of enhancing those notifications, making those as granular as possible to fit the needs of everyone in the lab. We also have a lot of folks that are managing their laboratory inventory currently within Sample Manager. We want to extend that use and kind of enhance it a little bit in creating sort of a more simplified reagent and disposables management system. And then, of course, continuing up this path. So making sure that that bridge from Sample Manager to our LabKey LIMS is really, really clear and tight, and that it's easy for folks when they're ready at scale to start kind of going up this. So reducing some of those manual processes, including having more automated workflow processes and the ability to add favorites at scale. And then also simplifying experimental plate management and tracking of those plates within the lab. So you may have gleaned already that getting started with LabKey is easier than ever. So we have hopefully demonstrated today that we have a continued dedication to ease of use. So really, again, trying to make this easy to adopt and easy to use within the lab, make it fun for lab members that may not want to be moving off Excel. It's cloud-based, so it requires zero IT support. We do all of the maintenance and security and database backups for you. You're provided an implementation specialist when you sign on with the Sample Manager, as well as being provided that ongoing support as a service that we provide. We also do provide migration services, although not many people need this. Overall, the application has been so easy to use that folks really choose to do their own migrations because that the bulk process is quite simple. And then really kind of making sure that we're focusing on exactly what labs need right away and allowing you to grow into that additional functionality as your lab grows, as your needs grow, as your funding grows potentially, and you want to start tracking things in that digital space more and more. So if you want to learn more, please schedule a demo. I'd be happy to review it with you or somebody else on the team. That link will be available for you in the kind of follow-up email that's coming later this week. So thank you. And before I introduce our next speakers, I'm going to go through kind of the chat here and answer some questions. So it looks like there's someone, we process at least hundreds of samples a day. How do you test and store samples at that scale? So that's a really great question. We have created environments that sort of work on the smaller scale labs as well as these larger scale labs. And so we have provided the ability to bulk import or update data, as well as bulk associate data with samples, assay data with samples, things like that. So we really have a very wide range of folks that are using the tool. We also are really committed to continually improving those processes, in particular for the folks at scale. So looking forward to doing more automation and improvements in that area for 2023. Another question is if we have an asset management component in Sample Manager. And so, yeah, that definitely has been something that we've heard, maybe not super frequently, but kind of along the way. It is definitely on the backlog. May not end up in sort of our goals for this coming year, but of course, as we have more and more clients asking for that, our main way of working is to listen to what folks are struggling with at the moment and really trying to create solutions for them. Okay, we only have a few people in our group. Excel works okay for us right now. What advantages do we get if we sacrifice the infinite flexibility of our Excel macros? Yeah, I think absolutely. This is a great question. So if you're working in Excel right now, we all know that at some point, those files get large enough that they are very slow to open. It's hard to sort of manage and validate data and ensure that records aren't deleted. You also are not getting that audit trail that might be needed for managing that chain of custody of your samples. So by moving from a spreadsheet-based system into a tool like Sample Manager, you have better connectivity when you are not in the lab. You have that ability to validate your data entry as well as ensure that folks have the right access. And then we're also providing you with a lot of other things kind of that Excel is not able to provide, like that data connected ELN, like managing workflows or requests within our workflow management system. So there's lots of reasons I'd encourage you to schedule a demo with me and we can talk about it. Another question here is, how can I find samples in inventory that meet certain criteria, minimum volume, type, subject, etc.? So that's really one of the benefits of Sample Finder, being able to look for samples that may have come from a subject, might be of a certain type. You can always use the grid to continue to query the volume, things like that. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the demo later, so please stay on and I'd be happy to answer that there. And then maybe just the last question in the interest of time here. We have a lot of instrument data generated daily. How do we get that data in without lots of additional work? So there are a lot of mechanisms to get your instrument data in. Mostly we find that folks do this with sort of file import. And so if you've got lots of files being generated from those instruments, as long as the data is in kind of a tabular format, it's very simple to upload it. If you are interested in more automated ways of doing that, our LIMS or SDMS offerings provide many other methods to transform that data, to clean that data, to get that data into the system.